The Cheeseboy 628 Show, starring Cheeseboy 628.
Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Cheeseboy628 here today giving you a Theory Thursday. Now today's Theory Thursday was requested by Dragon of Hoenn, whose favorite Pokemon happens to be Weavile. And it's definitely a great candidate for being on Theory Thursday because it certainly has changed from 5th gen to now. And so because of that, my theory is that Weavile will still be UU, but it'll definitely be a UU threat. Now by the way I was saying that Weavile has changed from 5th gen to 6th gen, it's definitely for the better. Now, you may have expected that I was thinking it will be an OU threat now, but to be fair, UU now is basically OU of 5th gen, not to mention that Weavile will definitely be one of the bigger threats in UU now. So let's look at Weavile's stats. Now, related to stats, my first reason that Weavile will be a UU threat is because of its great offensive stats and its move pool to go along with it. When you look at its attack and speed, you see a speed of 125, which is an amazing speed tier to be in. It would actually be the second fastest poke in the OU tier, second to Talonflame, which actually usually runs Adamant, so therefore with Weavile, which usually runs Jolly, is technically the fastest poke around in OU in that case. But speed is certainly not all that makes a Pokemon good. After all, seen as Jolteon, Mega Manectric, and Noivern are all in UU. But nonetheless, Weavile does have an excellent move pool for its offensive stats. It has the Stab Ice Shard, it now has Icicle Crash as opposed to using Ice Punch in the previous gens. For Dark Stab, it has access to Night Slash, which is no longer as viable because some people tend to run beat up, but most importantly, the ever so strong Knockoff, because now of its huge boost plus having Stab, it's going to be a huge threat on a poke with base 120 attack. Not to mention it has access to a decent coverage move known as Low Sweep for those pesky steel types that try to counter it. Now you may be thinking to yourself already that it's possibly just a faster version of B-Sharp and therefore possibly even stronger in that case. Well, that's why my next point is to kind of counter how strong it seems to be already. Weavile's main weak point is that it's pretty weak defensively. When you see 70, 65, 85 defenses matched up with one of the worst dual typings defensively possible, you can start to understand why Weavile just doesn't have enough bulk to be able to last in the OU metagame for too long. It has 6 weaknesses, a new one thanks to the new fairy typing, and it has a quad weakness to fighting, which is of course one of the most popular typings in the OU metagame. So now to stress more of my comparison of Weavile to B-Sharp. Both of them have pretty nice offensive dual typings, both of them do have priority, and both of them have a very threatening knockoff and base 120 attack. But B-Sharp is able to shine a little bit more, and that's because number one, it has a little bit more bulk to it. It has a better typing, especially since Ice is one of the most crippling typings for any Pokemon in the metagame. And most importantly, B-Sharp is able to handle hazards a lot better than Weavile is. In fact, Weavile I would consider weak to hazards. Number one, having the Ice typing, it will be weak to Rock, so it'll automatically lose a quarter of its health just from coming in on a switch while Rocks are in play. It's a grounded Pokemon that doesn't have a Poison or Steel typing, so therefore it is weak to Spikes and Toxic Spikes as well. And most of all, Weavile is pretty darn weak to Sticky Web, and that's because Weavile is so focused on speed, and although it's a really nice speed tier, losing one stage of speed just drops you drastically. Now for B-Sharp, Sticky Web can tend to be a blessing, seeing as its Defiant ability gives it an instant Swords Dance just from switching in. Weavile becomes a lot more crippled and a lot more frail and just weak to anything that's going to come in on the opponent's side. Weavile doesn't really have a setup move to make up for the speed that it loses. Besides the occasional Swords Dance variant of Weavile, it really isn't able to set up much. Now despite Weavile being frail, like I said in the beginning, it is certainly an amazing offensive threat. When there's pokes in the UU metagame such as Haxorus that are able to set up Dragon Dances and outspeed your entire team, there's always a priority super effective Stab Ice Shard coming from Weavile that is pretty darn threatening. Now in this calculation, I assumed that Weavile was a sash set, as that is one of its more popular sets, and although you can certainly use Life Orb or Choice Band, there is still a pretty good chance that you can 2-hit KO a Haxorus just from a max attack Ice Shard, so it's definitely not something to laugh at. So with that said, in conclusion, Weavile is definitely very strong offensively, but its defenses and typing leave it way too vulnerable to be very viable in the OU metagame. But with that said, I hope you all enjoyed. Please suggest more for next Theory Thursday like always, and thank you all for watching. Like, comment, sub, and until later, peace.